Hi, Elle here, back again to read to you part two, the conclusion of The Wizard of Oz by L.Frank Baum. I have this hardcover version here with some pretty cool illustrations. And last time we left Dorothy and the gang, the Cowardly Lion was passed out asleep in the poppy fields, and they had met the Queen of the Field Mice, who, with her and her subjects, built a wooden cart, put the lion in it, and carried him out to the edge of the field where they're now waiting for him to awaken so they can finish their journey. It was some time before the Cowardly Lion awakened, but when he did, he was very glad to find himself alive. "Now we must continue our journey to the Emerald City," said Dorothy. The country was beautiful, and now green fences lined the road. "Surely we are getting close to the Emerald City," said the Scarecrow. "Yes," answered Dorothy. "Everything is green here, while in the country of the Munchkins, everything was blue, their favorite color." They met a nice farm family and spent the night there, started out early the next morning. They soon saw a beautiful green glow in the sky ahead, yet it was afternoon before they came to the great green wall that surrounded the city. Before them, at the end of the yellow brick road, "Follow the yellow brick road," was a huge green door that was studded with emeralds that glittered so in the sun. So much so that even the painted eyes of the Scarecrow were dazzled by their brilliance. There was a bell besides the gate, which Dorothy quickly walked up to and rang. The big gate slowly swung open, and they found themselves in a high arched room, the walls of which glistened with countless emeralds everywhere. Before them stood a little man about the same size as the Munchkins. He was dressed all in green from his head to his toes, and even his skin had somewhat a greenish tint. At his side was a large green box. When he saw Dorothy and her companions, the man asked, "What do you wish in the Emerald City?" "We've come here to see the Great Oz," said Dorothy. The man was so surprised at this answer that he sat down to think it over. And then he said, "I am the guardian of the gates, and since you demand to see the Great Oz, I must warn you, he is great and terrible. He might be terribly angry or terribly sleepy. We never know how terrible he might be. If you come on an idle or foolish errand, he might be angry and destroy you instantly. Now you must put on these spectacles, because if you don't wear them, the brightness and glory of the Great Oz and the Great Emerald City will surely blind you." "Okay," said Dorothy. "They're locked on. The Great Oz has ordered it so, and I have the only key that will unlock them." He opened the big box, which was filled with millions of pairs of spectacles. Well, maybe not millions, but there was a lot. They were every size and shape you can imagine, and all of them had green glass inside. The guardian found a pair that would fit Dorothy perfectly and put them on over her eyes. Two golden bands fastened them around the back of her head, where they were locked on with a little key that was on the end of the chain of the guardian. He wore the key around his neck. He then fitted the spectacles on all of the others, even a pair for little Toto. They were all locked with the key, and he placed it back around his neck. The guardian then put on his own glasses, took a big golden key from a peg on the wall, and opened the gate to the Emerald City. Everything is green inside. They're coming in the city with all their green glasses. Oh, even the book is green. Dorothy and her friends were dazzled by the brilliance of the wonderful city. The houses and the streets were all green marble, studded with emeralds. Even the rays of sun had a green tint. The guardian of the gates led them straight through the streets until they came to the palace of Oz, the great wizard. A soldier stood at the door, dressed in a green uniform with green shoes and green spectacles. And he had a long green beard.
"Here are the strangers," said the guardian of the gates to the soldier. "They wish to see the great Oz."
The soldier bade them to enter the hall and went to deliver their message to the great wizard. When the soldier returned, Dorothy asked, "Have you seen Oz?"
"Oh no,"
he replied.
"I have never seen him, but I told him of your silver shoes and the mark upon your forehead, and he decided to grant you an audience. Now I will have you shown to your rooms, where you may rest in comfort after your journey."
He blew upon a great green whistle, and at once a young girl, dressed in green, with green hair and green eyes and green clothes, entered the room and led them all to pretty little green rooms. The next morning, the Green Maiden dressed Dorothy in a pretty gown made of green silk, and Dorothy added a green silk apron and tied a green ribbon around Toto's neck. Next, the green girl led them into the throne room of the great Oz. They came to a great hall and were shown to a big round room with a high dome roof. Every surface was covered with large emerald. There was more shades of green than you could ever imagine. What interested them most was the big throne of green marble. In the center of the seat was an enormous head. As Dorothy gazed upon this, the eyes looked at her, and the mouth said,
"I am Oz, the great and terrible."
The walls shook.
"Who are you, and why do you seek me?" he boomed.
It was not such an awful voice as she expected, just very loud, and it seemed to come from all angles. So Dorothy took a step forward and answered, "I am Dorothy, the small and meek. I have come to you to ask for help."
"Where did you get those silver shoes and that mark upon your forehead?" the
voice demanded. "The Witch of the North gave me the shoes and kissed me to protect me from the harm when she sent me to meet you. My house fell on the Wicked Witch of the East and killed her. And she stuttered.
"What do you wish me to do?"
the voice interrupted and demanded. "I want to go back home to Kansas, and my friends here,
Why should I do this for you?"
the voice interrupted.
"You have no right to expect me to help you unless you do something for me in return. You must kill the Wicked Witch of the West."
The voice boomed and the walls shook. "But I cannot!" exclaimed Dorothy, greatly surprised that he would ask her to kill something.
"You killed the Witch of the East, and you wear the silver shoes, which bear a powerful charm. There is now but one wicked witch left in all the land, and when you tell me she is dead, I will grant your requests. Not before, no sooner."
The four friends were stunned and shaking at this answer. They had no wish to kill anyone. As each stepped forward to make his plea, the Scarecrow to ask for brains, the Tin Woodsman for a heart, and the Lion for courage, each got the same booming answer. To obtain their heart's desires, they must kill the Wicked Witch. Outside the fearsome throne room, they sadly resolved to begin their new quest the very next morning. Just when they thought they were about to end their journey. The soldier with the green beard led them through the streets of the Emerald City until they reached the outer gates. The guardian unlocked their spectacles and put them back in the box. "Which road leads to the Wicked Witch of the West?" asked Dorothy.
"There is no road," answered the guardian of the gates. "No one ever wishes to go that way, so there shall never be a road to follow."
"How are we supposed to find her?" said the girl.
"That will be easy," replied the man. "For when she knows you are in the country of the Winkies, she will find you herself and make you her slave."
"Perhaps not," said the Scarecrow, "for we mean to destroy her."
"Oh, that is different," said the guardian. "No one has ever destroyed her, which is why she is alive. So I naturally thought she would destroy you, or enslave you. All she has is all the rest of the people who ever tried to leave. Keep to the west where the sun sets, and you cannot fail to find her."
They thanked him and bade him goodbye as they turned towards the west, walking over the fields of soft grass. Dorothy still wore the pretty green silk dress she had put on in the palace, but now, to her surprise, she found it no longer green, but pure white. This perplexed her. The ribbon around Toto's neck had also lost its green color and as white as Dorothy's dress. The Emerald City was soon left far behind. As they advanced, the ground became rougher and hillier. There was more rocks, less grass, and more dirt. In the afternoon, the sun shone hot on their faces, for there were no trees to offer them shade. So that before night, Dorothy, Toto, and the lion were so very tired. They lay down upon the bumpy, rocky grass and dirt and fell asleep, with the Tin Woodsman and the Scarecrow keeping watch. Now, the Wicked Witch of the West had only one eye, but that eye was as powerful as a telescope. So, as she looked out from her castle and saw that little group in her country, the Wicked Witch became very, very angry, and she blew upon a great silver whistle. All at once came to her a pack of great fierce wolves and a flock of wild crows, enough to darken the blue sky.
"Go to those people," said the witch to the wolves and the crows. "Pick out their eyes and tear them to pieces."
The wolf pack dashed away, and the crows after them. Luckily, the Scarecrow and the Woodsman began to hear the flapping of the wings and the paws upon the ground. The Woodsman seized his axe, and the Scarecrow stood with his arms outstretched to frighten the crows, for that was his specialty. As the wolves attacked, the Tin Woodsman swung his axe until 40 wolves lay dead in a heap. The Scarecrow caught the birds by the neck and twisted them until 40 crows lay dead in a heap. The next morning, Dorothy awoke. Amazed at what she saw, she wanted to quickly start upon their journey. Now this same morning, the Wicked Witch looked out in her one telescopic eye and saw all her wolves and crows lying dead, and this made her so very angry. She blew her silver whistle again. Straight away, a swarm of black bees came to her. They hovered in the air as she ordered them to sting all the strangers to death. The bees flew straight, making a beeline to our friends. The Scarecrow said, "Take out my straw and scatter it all over the little girl, the dog, and the lion. This will protect them from the bee stings." The Tin Woodsman did this, and as Dorothy lay close behind the lion, she held Toto tight in her arms. The straw covered them entirely. Soon the bees came and flew at the Tin Woodsman, breaking all their stingers against his tin, for it was like armor for them all. It did not hurt him, and the bees cannot live without their stingers. So with broken stingers, that was the end of the black bees. Dorothy and the lion got up and helped the Tin Woodsman and thanked him for saving their lives. They put the straw back into the scarecrow again. The Wicked Witch was furious when she saw her beautiful black bees in little heaps like fine coal. She couldn't understand how her plans had been foiled, and she had tried to destroy these intruders, and she had failed. So she made up her mind of what to do. She had a charmed golden cap. Whoever owned it would command the winged monkeys 3 times. The Wicked Witch had used 2 of her 3 orders already, but she saw no other way than to use her final order to destroy Dorothy and her friends. Dun-dun, dun-dun. So she took the cap and she spoke into the charm. The sky darkened and a low rumbling was heard throughout the land. There was a rushing of many great wings and chattering and laughing. Crazy sounds filled the air, and the witch was soon surrounded by a crowd of evil winged monkeys with red eyes. The biggest one flew close to the witch and warned her that this was her last summons.
What is your third and last command?
Breathed the monkey.
Go to the strangers and kill all but the lion. He is fit to work as my slave.
They obeyed. The monkeys flew to the woodsman high into the air and dropped him onto a pile of sharp rocks. They tore apart the scarecrow and put his clothes in a high tree. The leader of the monkey flew to Dorothy, but soon saw the kiss of the good witch and knew he dared not harm her. So the monkeys carried the lion, Dorothy, and little Black Toto to the castle of the Wicked Witch. The leader of the winged monkeys explained to the Wicked Witch,
We dare not harm the child, nor her dog. Your power over our band is now ended. We cannot act over the kiss of the good witch.
Then the 3 monkeys and all their followers flew away. The Wicked Witch was worried about the mark on Dorothy's forehead, for she knew it protected the girl from evil. And when she looked down and saw those silver shoes, she wouldn't let them know, but she trembled in fear. She saw Dorothy's eyes, and the child didn't know the power of those great shoes. So the witch would not tell her. She also did not know the protection that the good witch's kiss had given her. So the Wicked Witch said to Dorothy harshly,
Come with me and see that you mind everything I tell you. For if you do not, I will make an end to you, as I did of the Tin Man and the ugly Scarecrow.
Dorothy followed her through the castle, trembling, where the witch made her clean all the kettles and sweep all the floors and keep the fire fed with wood. Dorothy went to work meekly, and the witch went to the courtyard and tried to harness the cowardly lion like a horse. But the lion gave a loud roar and bounded towards her fiercely with anger. After that, she took no food to the lion and told him he must starve if he will not help her. She came into the yard at noon and asked the lion if he was ready to be harnessed like a horse. And the lion said, No, I will not do as you say. The lion didn't have to do as the witch wished, because every night Dorothy brought him food when the witch went to sleep. because that's what friends are for. Then he and Dorothy tried to plan their escape, but they could find no way out of the castle. They seemed to be trapped. Now the Wicked Witch longed to steal those silver shoes when Dorothy was not paying attention, for they were so very powerful, but the child only took them off at night and when she took her bath. The witch was too afraid of the dark. Imagine a witch being afraid of the dark in her own castle. So she was also scared of the water because she knew that water could melt her. So she never touched the water and had to decide what she would do in the dark. One day, the witch decided,
I will play a trick on Dorothy.
She placed an iron bar, which she made invisible from witch's magic, in the middle of the kitchen floor. Poor Dorothy, while cleaning, stumbled over it and fell. One of the silver shoes came flying off. The witch snatched it up and put it on her old, skinny, wrinkly, warty, toenailless, hairy foot. Ew. The wicked woman was greatly pleased, for one of the shoes could give her half of the power of their charm, and Dorothy could not use it against her, even if she had known how to do so. The little girl was very angry when she saw she had lost one of her pretty shoes and said to the witch, "Give me back my shoe, old witch."
I won't, ordered the witch. For now, it's my shoe, not yours. And someday I shall get the other one from you too, my pretty.
This made Dorothy so very angry that she picked up a bucket of water and threw it onto the witch, wetting her from head to foot.
See what you've done, she said. I'm going to melt away. I'm melting.
Oh, I'm very sorry indeed, Dorothy said. She was truly frightened to see that the witch was actually melting before her eyes. Was this some magic that she had not known?
I never thought a little girl like you would ever be able to melt me and end my wicked deeds. Look out! Here I go! I'm melting! I'm melting!
With these words, the witch fell down into a melted, shapeless mass and began to spread all over the kitchen floor. Seeing that she really had melted away into nothing, Dorothy drew another bucket of water and threw it over the mess. She picked up her silver shoe and put it on her foot. She swept all the water out the door and ran to tell the lion that the Wicked Witch of the West was dead. The Cowardly Lion was much pleased to hear that the Wicked Witch had been melted by a bucket of water. They couldn't help but laugh. When Dorothy unlocked the gate of his prison to set him free, the lion was so very happy. Dorothy's first act was to call together all of the Winkies, who had long been the witch's slaves, and tell them that they were now free. There was a great rejoicing among all of the yellow Winkies, for they had been made to work hard doing all these many years for the Wicked Witch, who had always treated them with great cruelty. They kept this day as a holiday, then and ever after, and spent the time feasting and dancing, much like the Munchkins had.
Oh, if our friends the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodsman were only with us, said the lion, I should be quite happy.
Do you suppose we could find them and rescue them? Said the girl.
We can try, said the lion.
So they called all the yellow Winkies to a meeting and asked them if they would help. The Winkies said that they would be delighted to do a favor, and they would do all in their power for Dorothy, who had set them free from the evil bondage of the witch. So she chose a number of the Winkies, and they all started away. They traveled that day and part of the next day until they came to the rocky plain where the Tin Woodman lay battered and bent and broken. His axe was rusted and the handle chipped in many places. The Winkies lifted him tenderly in their arms and carried him back to the castle, where Dorothy asked if any of the Winkies were tinsmiths.
"Oh, yes, some of us are very good tinsmiths," they told her.
"Then bring him to me," she said. And when all the tinsmiths came and gathered around him, she said, "Can you straighten out the dents in the Tin Woodsman and solder him together where he is broken so he can become whole?" The tinsmiths looked at the Tin Woodsman ever so carefully and replied that they could mend him so he would be as good as ever. They set to work diligently in one of the big rooms of the castle and worked for 3 days and 4 nights, hammering and bending and melting and soldering and polishing the Tin Woodman until he was straightened out good as new. To be sure, there were several patches on him, but the tinsmiths did an excellent job. Meanwhile, another one of the Winkies had made an axe handle of solid gold and fitted it to the woodman's axe, instead of that old broken and chipped handle. When at last the Tin Woodsman walked into Dorothy's room and thanked her for rescuing him, he was so pleased that he wept actual tears of joy. She made him stop for fear of rusting his face. Her own tears fell thick and fast at the joy of meeting her friend again. As for the lion, he wiped his eyes so often with the tip of his tail that it became quite wet, and he was obliged to go out into the sun until it had dried. "If we only had the Scarecrow with us again," sighed Dorothy. "We must try to find him," she said. So she called the Winkies to help her, and they walked all that day and a part of the next until they came to a tall tree, in the branches of which the winged monkey had tossed the Scarecrow's clothes. The woodsman set to chopping down the tree. In a short time, the tree fell over with the crash, and the Scarecrow's clothes fell out of the branches onto the ground. The Winkies carried all the clothes back to the castle, where they were stuffed with rice and clean straw. And behold, here was the Scarecrow as good as new, thanking them over and over again for saving him. Now that they were reunited, Dorothy and her friends spent a happy few days at the castle, eating and having dance parties. But one day the girl said, "Now we must go back to Oz so he can claim his promise."
"Yes," said the Scarecrow.
"Yes," said the woodsman. "I'll get my heart."
"And I'll get my brains," said the Scarecrow.
"I'll get my courage," said the lion. "And I'll get back to Kansas," said Dorothy. "Okay, let's start out for the Emerald City tomorrow." The next day, they bade all the Winkies goodbye, thanking them for all their help. The Winkies were sad to have them go, but said that they will keep a holiday in their remembrance forever. But finding they were determined to go, the Winkies gave Toto and the lion each a brand new golden collar, and to Dorothy they gave a beautiful golden bracelet, and to the Scarecrow they gave a gold-headed walking stick to keep him from stumbling if he got rusted. They also gave a silver oil can inlaid with gold and set with beautiful precious jewels. Dorothy went to the witch's cupboard to fill her basket with food for the journey, and that is when she saw the golden cap. She tied it onto her head and found that it fitted her exactly. She knew nothing about the charm or the magic of the golden cap. All she saw was that it was pretty and matched her golden bracelet, so she made up her mind to wear it and to carry her sunbonnet instead. For then they started off to the Emerald City. The travelers knew they must go straight east toward the rising sun, but at noon, when the sun was over their heads, they realized that they were lost in the great barren fields. One by one, they lost heart and hope, even Dorothy. She sat down in the grass and looked at her companions, and they sat down and looked at her back, everyone looking to each other for answers. Toto panted and looked at Dorothy as if he was even asking what they should do next. "Suppose we call the field mice," said Dorothy. "They'll tell us the way to Oz." So she called out, and in a few minutes the Queen and her subjects came running. The Queen of the Mice asked how she could help them. "Can you please tell us where to find the Emerald City?" she said.
"Certainly," answered the Queen. "But it's a great way off. Why don't you use the charm of the golden cap that you wear upon your head to call the winged monkeys to help you? They will carry you there in no time."
"The charm? The cap? Flying monkeys? I didn't know any of this," answered Dorothy in surprise.
"It's written inside the cap,"
said the mouse.
"Don't be afraid. They must obey the wearer of the gold cap. Goodbye."
And she scampered off out of sight, all her subjects behind her. Dorothy took off her cap and looked inside and read the charm. Then she put the cap back on her head and followed the instructions to summon the winged monkeys. Suddenly she heard a great chattering and flapping of wings as the band of monkeys flew together and upon them. The great Monkey King, with his red eyes, bowed low before Dorothy and asked for her command. "We wish to go to the Emerald City," said the girl.
"We will carry you,"
replied the king. So 2 monkeys caught her in their arms and flew away up into the sky with her. The others looked frightened because of what had happened with the monkeys before. The Scarecrow and the Tin Woodsman and the Lion all got taken by their own monkeys, and one baby monkey seized Toto and flew after them. In no time at all, this odd group of creatures set the travelers down carefully before the gate of the Emerald City. The king bowed to Dorothy, and the band flew away. The guardian of the gates rolled his eyes when he saw them, and seemed somewhat worried that they were back again. As they walked through the city, he was telling everyone that they had melted the Wicked Witch of the West. The soldier with the green whiskers carried the news to Oz, but Oz made no reply for several days. Dorothy became worried. At last, the wizard finally sent for them to come to them, but the throne was empty and the head was gone. They kept close to one another, scared, not knowing what would happen. Then they suddenly heard a disembodied voice say,
"I am Great Oz, the great and terrible. Why do you seek me?"
"We have come to claim our promises," Dorothy said pleadingly.
"Has the Wicked Witch been destroyed?"
asked the voice, and Dorothy thought and trembled slightly. "Yes," she said, "I melted her with water."
"Dear me," said the voice, "how sudden! Well, come to me tomorrow, for I do not know. I must think upon this."
The lion thought it might be as well to frighten the wizard, so he gave a large roar, "Roar!" which was so dreadful that even Toto jumped away from him in fear and tipped over the screen as he was running. As it fell with a crash, they looked away and saw a tiny old man with white hair and a bald head, who seemed to be as much surprised as they were. What is going on here? Then Tin Woodsman, raising his axe, rushed towards the little man and cried out, "Who are you?" "I am Oz, the great and terrible," said the little man in a much smaller, trembling voice. "But don't strike me, please." The friends looked at him in surprise, dismay, and confusion. "We thought Oz was a great big head," said Dorothy. "No, you were wrong," said the little man meekly. "I have been making believe all this time, and you have figured me out." "Making believe?" said Dorothy. "Are you not a great wizard?" "Hush, my dear," he said. "Don't speak so loud. You hurt my ears." Plus, I must not let anyone overhear, and I will be ruined if so. I am supposed to be a great wizard. And aren't you? She asked. Not even a bit, said the little man. I am just a common man. You're more than that, said Dorothy in a grieved tone. You're a humbug. Exactly so, said the little man, rubbing his hands together as if it pleased him. I am a humbug. Oh, or I my courage, said the lion. Or I my brains, said the scarecrow. My dear friend, said Oz, I pray you think of me and the terrible trouble I am going to be at being found out that this is all a sham, and I am not a wizard. Does anyone else know that you're just a humbug? Said Dorothy. No one knows but you four and myself, replied Oz. It was a great mistake, me ever letting you into the throne room. Usually I won't see my subjects, and so they believe that I am something terrible. But I don't understand, said Dorothy. How is it that you appear to us as such a great head? One of my many tricks, he laughed. Step this way, please, and I will tell you all about it. He led them into a small chamber behind the great green head. In the corner, there lay the head, made out of many thicknesses of paper. It was made of paper, with a painted face even. I hung this from the ceiling by a wire, said Oz, and stood behind the screen, and pulled the thread to make the eyes and mouth move. All the smoke and sparkling and green light made it seem like it was alive. But what about the voice? Said Dorothy. I am a ventriloquist, said the little man. I can throw my voice wherever I want, and no one will ever know. Really? Said the scarecrow. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for being such a humbug. I certainly am, said the little man. But it was the only thing I could do. Sit down, please, and I will tell you my story. I was only born in Omaha. Why, that isn't very far from Kansas at all, said Dorothy. No, but it's so very far from here, you see. When I grew up, I became a ventriloquist, trained by a great master. After a time, I tired of that, and I became a balloonist. I'd go up in a balloon on a circus day and draw a crowd of people. Well, one day I went up in a balloon and the ropes got twisted, so that I couldn't come down again. It went very far above the clouds. For a day and a night I traveled through the air, and on the morning of the second day, I woke and found the balloon floating over a strange and beautiful country. The balloon came down gradually. I found myself in the midst of strange people who, seeing me come from the clouds, thought I was a great wizard. Of course, they were afraid of me and I had promised them I could do whatever they wished. Just to amuse myself and keep the good people busy, I ordered them to build me a city and my palace, and they did it all. And then I thought, as the country was so green and beautiful, that I would call it the Emerald City. And I put green spectacles on all the people, with little keys to lock them behind their head, so that everything they saw was green. But isn't everything here green anyway? Not any more than any other city, said Oz. But when you wear the green spectacles, of course, you see everything looks green to you. My people have been wearing green glasses for so long that most of them think that it is really an Emerald City. I have never been bad to my people. I am always good, and they like me. But ever since this palace was built, I have shut myself inside and would not see any of them. While I have no magical powers at all, I soon found out that the witches were really able to do magical things. The witches of the East and the West are terribly wicked, and they had not thought that I was more powerful than them. Then they surely would have tried to destroy me. So I kept on with my trickery. So you can imagine how pleased I was when I heard that the house had fallen on the Wicked Witch of the East. When you came to me, I was willing to promise anything if you would only do away with the other witch. So therefore, I have no enemies. But now that you have actually melted her, I am ashamed to say, I cannot keep my promise. I do not know how to go back to Kansas. Oh, my dear, you are a very bad man, said Dorothy. You got my hopes up, and I thought I was going home to see Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. Oh, no, my dear, I am a very, very good man. I am just a very, very bad wizard, I must admit. Can you give me my brains? Said the Scarecrow. Dorothy rolled her eyes and laughed. You don't need them. You are learning something new every day. You have a baby brain from when you are born. Experience is the only thing that brings knowledge, and the longer you are on the earth, the more experience you are sure to get. That may all be true, said the Scarecrow, but I shall be very unhappy unless you give me brains. Well, said Oz with a sigh, if you will come to me tomorrow morning, I will stuff your head with brains. I cannot tell you how to use them, however, but you must find that out for yourself. Oh, thank you, cried the Scarecrow. I will find a way to use them, never fear, I will. But how about my courage? Asked the Lion anxiously. You have plenty of courage, I'm sure, said Oz. All you need is confidence in yourself. True courage is in facing danger when you are afraid, and that kind of courage you have plenty. Perhaps, but I'm still scared, said the Lion. I'll be very unhappy unless you give me my courage that makes me forget I'm afraid. Very well, I'll give you that sort of courage tomorrow, said Oz. How about my heart? Said the Tin Woodsman. Why, as for that, answered Oz, I think a heart makes most people unhappy. You really are in luck to not have a heart. I will bear all the unhappiness without a murmur if you just give me a heart, said the Tin Woodsman. Very well, said Oz meekly. Come to me tomorrow, and you shall have a heart. And now, said Dorothy, how am I going to get back to Kansas? We shall have to think about that one, said the little man. Give me a day or two to consider the matter, and I will try to find a way. There is only one thing I ask in return for my help, such as it is. You must keep my secret and not tell the people of my land that I am a humbug. They agreed, and all went back to their rooms in high spirits. Even Dorothy had hope for that Oz would find a way to send her home. The next morning, the Scarecrow said to his friends, I am going to Oz to get my brains at last. When I return, I shall be as all the other men are. I have always liked you how you are, Dorothy said simply. The Scarecrow went into the throne room and knocked on the door. Come in, said Oz. I have come for my brains, said the Scarecrow. Oh, yes, sit down, said Oz. Please excuse me for removing your head. I must put the brains in the proper place. That's all right, said the Scarecrow. As long as it will be better when you put it on again, I will have my brains. So the wizard unfastened his head and then took up some brain, mixed in many pins and needles, and filled the top of the Scarecrow's head with the mixture. He stuffed the rest of the space with straw in little balls, which he had fastened the Scarecrow's head on again. He said, There now, I have given you a lot of brand new brains. The Scarecrow, both pleased and proud at the fulfillment of his greatest wish, thanked Oz warmly and went back to his friends. Dorothy looked at the Scarecrow curiously. His head was quite bulging at the top with his brand new brains. She asked him how he felt. I feel wise indeed, he said earnestly. Well, I must go to Oz and get my heart, said the woodsman. So he walked into the throne room and knocked on the door. Come in, called Oz, and the woodsman entered and said, I have come for my heart. Very well, said the little man, but I shall have to cut a hole in your breast so I can put the heart in the right place. Oz bought a pair of big tinner's shears and cut a small square hole on the left side of the Tin Woodman's breast. Then he showed the woodsman a pretty heart made entirely of silk and stuffed with sawdust. Isn't it a beauty? He asked. Oh, indeed, replied the Tin Woodsman. But is it a kind heart? Oh, very, answered Oz. He put the heart in the woodsman's breast and replaced the square of tin, soldering it neatly. The Tin Woodsman exclaimed his gratitude and returned to his friends. The lion walked into the throne room and knocked on the door.
Come in,
said Oz. I have come for my courage, said the lion as he entered. Very well, said the little man. He went into the cupboard and reached up onto a high shelf and took out a square green bottle. He poured its contents into a green gold dish. Placing this before the Cowardly Lion, the wizard said, Drink. What is it? Said the lion. Well, said Oz, if it were inside of you, it would be courage. But courage is always inside one, so that this really cannot be called courage until you have swallowed it. The lion hesitated no longer and drank until the dish was completely empty. How do you feel now? Said Oz. Full of courage, replied the lion, and went back to his friends, happy with his new discovery. Oz, left to himself, smiled to think of his success. How can I help being a humbug? He thought to himself. They think I can do anything, but it will take more than imagination to get Dorothy to Kansas. For 3 solid days, Dorothy heard nothing from Oz. She longed back for her family and missed her home. Finally, he sent for her. We each came to this country by air, said the wizard. I by balloon, you by cyclone. So I believe the best way to get across the desert will be through the air. I have plenty of silk in the palace to make a balloon, and we can fill it with hot air and make it float. We, said the girl. Are you going with me? Yes, he answered. Now let's begin the work on our beautiful balloon. As fast as Oz could cut the strips of silk into a proper shape, Dorothy sewed them neatly together. First a strip of light green, then dark green, then emerald green. It took 3 entire days, but when it was finished, they had a big bag of green silk, 20 feet long. Then Oz painted on the inside with a coat of thin glue to make it airtight. He sent the soldier with the green whiskers for a big clothes basket, which he fastened with many ropes to the bottom of the balloon. When all was ready, Oz sent word to his people that he was going to make a visit to a great brother wizard who lived in the clouds. The news spread so rapidly that everyone came to see the wonderful sight. The woodman chopped a big pile of wood and made a fire. And Oz held the bottom of the balloon over the fire so the hot air would be caught into the silken bag. The balloon swelled and rose into the air, and Oz got into the basket and said, I am going away to make a visit. While I am gone, the Scarecrow will rule over you. Obey him as you would me. The balloon tugged at the ropes that held it to the ground, for the air within it was hot, making it so light in weight that it pulled hard to rise into the sky. Come on, Dorothy, said the wizard. Hurry, or the balloon will fly away. Toto ran after a kitten, but Dorothy had found him and picked him up and ran towards the balloon. She was so close, and Oz was holding out his hand to help her, when crack went the ropes, and the balloon rose up into the air without the little girl. Come back, she screamed down below. I want to go too. I want to go home. I can't come back, my dear, called Oz from the basket. Goodbye! Goodbye! He shouted to everyone, and all eyes were turned upwards to the wizard who rode in the basket, rising farther and farther into the sky. And that was the last any of them ever saw of the great Oz, the wonderful wizard, though the people remembered him as so, recalling that he'd built the beautiful Emerald City and left the wise Scarecrow to rule over them. Dorothy wept and wept bitterly at losing her chance to go home to Kansas again. The morning after the balloon went up with Oz, the 4 friends met into the throne room. If Dorothy would only be contented to live in the Emerald City. But she wasn't. We might be all happy together, said the Scarecrow. But Dorothy, of course, wanted to go home to see Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. The Scarecrow thought, and finally he said, Why don't you call the winged monkeys and ask them to carry you over the desert? I never thought of that, said Dorothy. I still have one wish. So Dorothy put on the golden cap and spoke the charm to summon the band. Soon the winged monkeys flew through the open window, and the Monkey King bowed. This is the second time you have called. What do you wish? I want to fly to Kansas, said Dorothy. We cannot, he said. We belong to this country alone. Oh my god. I had an error there. Fuck.